Welcome back to Pints and Politics, episode 32.
The Marcus Allen episode.
Yeah, Marcus Allen.
You know?
I was trying.
It's 32.
Is there anybody else that's 32?
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty.
I mean, what was Jim Brown, 34? 32 or 34?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was Jim Brown, too. He's probably better than Marcus Allen.
Because I remember whenever I was playing Pee Wee football and I had the number 32, they're like, oh, yeah, this is such and such's number.
Oh, yeah.
Like I had 21
Yep,
because that was Terry Allen's
Next
number.
week will be the Tony Dorsett remote at Holy City Brewing. You know, that's the Tony Dorsett episode.
Yeah. I don't know if there's another one that's 33.
Yeah, there's plenty. But yeah, thanks to Comer Distributing for being a sponsor and providing the pint of the week. We're drinking Sycamore Pumpkin Latte Blonde. It's a blonde ale with coffee and spices.
I actually like it all right.
It's
it
a
makes
spice cake in a can.
It makes me feel like I need to be wearing those like tall boots that the girls wear during the fall. You know?
So, girl cowboy boots, Guffey's latest photo shoot for a campaign.
You know, it's the, what do they call it? The basic girl. But we do have the nice false fall.
Yeah, that's
out
right.
today.
So I know,
woke
high
up,
of
it was
like 82,
yeah.
Lows of 65.
Nice and cold.
It is good football weather.
I was on the phone with a friend of ours who is at a conference in Portland, Oregon. And whenever I was talking to him, he was complaining that it was 101,
Yeah.
like so humid and everything.
Yep.
And I was like, oh yeah. I was like, it's a cool 75 here right now. And I looked down at my phone, it was 76, high of 80. I'm like,
Yeah, I know.
think of what you're missing.
But just wait, because this weekend, I'm sure you're going to get the 8 things of summer. You know, it's summer, it's hotter than hell, it's hell, false.
It waits
fall.
till football game day.
Yeah, right.
Game day is whenever it comes out hot and humid.
Yeah, like last week in Columbia, brother.
Did you see Craig Parks wearing a jacket?
Yes. So being there and seeing him and others in jackets and just sweating their behinds off, I turned to my daughter and I said, yeah, that guy is working, okay? It is... He is on the clock right now because he does not choose to dress that way.
if I'm showing up to a political event and it's at home and I'm not in session,
Yeah.
I rarely put on a suit, right?
Oh, right.
You're lucky that I have on sleeves and not a flat bill.
Yeah.
Like that's
I'll try to do some mixture of like slacks and a golf shirt, maybe slacks and a button up, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to be too overdressed, but then every now and again it's a mixed invitee list, and you know, if a senator's invited, you're gonna have to wear a jacket because then they're gonna try to show you up with a jacket, you know. Yeah. And then you double down with the brooch. You know, you put the house brooch on your lapel.
It's bigger.
Yeah, and it's like, hey, they see the brooch. I look official, Senator Johnson. Yeah. You know.
And if I do wear a jacket in the summer, it's usually with a T-shirt underneath it.
Oh. No, and it's indoors.
Yeah.
You ain't going to a July 4th parade in a jacket.
I carry a jacket that I can wear with jeans.
Yeah.
And because I don't have as many, I'm not a J. Crew khaki guy.
Yeah.
I either wear dress slacks or I wear jeans. Like, I don't have that in between because I've never been a person that really likes pants too much to begin with.
Right.
Rather
You know,
wear
it's funny. We
shorts.
talk about, like, you and I, we're sort of in that generation of elected officials. I don't say politicians. I say public servants, elected leaders, whatever. But because politicians just has, like, a grimy name to it. But that's politicians' fault.
It makes you think of people being on flatbeds, like, talking about a subject that has nothing to do with politics.
But we talk about how we're sort of a newer generation of leaders, right? And I think you can see it in the way we dress and the way we talk, right? I think we talk like people talk that you would run into on the street.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, we don't come across as professorial. We don't go, I'm going door knocking this coming up week, and I'm going to be in shorts and a golf shirt. I'm not wearing...
We're not trying to overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah. I'm one of y'all.
Yeah.
I work for y'all. It's sort of a job interview, but it's 85 degrees, so I should demonstrate I got some sense if I'm going to walk 5 miles.
Whenever you go to the
knocking on
Yankee
doors.
neighborhoods, make sure I'm one of Yuns.
See, I don't got to worry about that out here.
They're all on my side and north of the river.
But yeah, man, I mean, I'm not doing, sweaty armpit stains on an Oxford blue shirt and thinking I'm going to get somebody's vote.
Now, I will put on a polo whenever I'm door knocking instead of like a t-shirt or something.
I'm wearing
it would be better to wear a hat because of
How you're losing
humidity.
hair?
Yeah, and because of how I'm losing hair, like all of the above. But it is off-putting, especially with these Ring cameras, having a male come up to your door with a beard like this and a flat bill hat or any baseball hat.
Hey, but if they got teenagers like, hey, Mom, Dad, Conor McGregor's at the house, So you got that goal for you.
Yeah. But it makes it a little bit more difficult. And I think about my wife whenever people were coming and knocking at the doors.
Yeah.
And she doesn't usually answer anyway.
Oh, really?
But, yeah.
She just checks the camera?
No, I mean, she just won't even go to the door.
Really?
Like, she don't even bother with it.
Huh.
She thinks if I wanted you here, then I would have invited you over.
Oh, yeah.
So if you're just knocking,
my wife gets a little
welcome.
like that, too, with the phone.
Yeah.
Like, if a number calls, even if it's like York, South Carolina, Rock Hill, it's an 803, she won't answer it.
Melissa won't either.
And I'm like, honey, that could be the pharmacy, or that could be, she's like,
nah.
Unless she's already called them and expecting the call back, she's not answering. It's like some weird stage fright thing or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. She's just like, I'm not mentally prepared for that call, so I'm not answering it.
I called her, I think it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And she didn't answer. And then she called back. And I was like, did I leave my sunglasses over there?
Oh.
I've been searching for my sunglasses
my
for
wife.
a week.
Yeah, she told me. Okay. I was like, your wife didn't answer your call? That speaks to a whole nother.
She doesn't do that either. Like, she just doesn't carry the phone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Like,
I come in last night and she's got her headsets on, or the earbuds, I don't know, Beats or whatever they are.
Yeah.
She's got those on. She's like putting stuff in the fridge, and I said something. She didn't turn around. So I do the husbandly thing, give her the nice pat on the butt, like, hey, honey, I'm here.
Try not to scare the crap out of you. I'm not creeping behind you here.
She turns around and she's like, says something, goes back to work. I walk all the way back on the other side of the house, go into the bedroom, and she's got something on YouTube sitting on her phone in there, and it's just playing the whole time. But her phone doesn't like leave the room. Like, it stays in there. So even, if I walk by the phone and see it's like, hey, your dad's calling.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, I'll call him back.
Well,
like, I'm not rushing to get to the phone. Me, I'm always like, I'm going to answer it because, well, then again, us as
working
servants, like, we got to know whether it's somebody that actually needs something.
Right.
The only time I won't answer an unknown number is if I'm sitting with family or something like that.
Yeah.
But if it's a family member calling, I'll usually answer regardless just to ensure everything's okay.
Yeah, right. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. It might just be indicative of the times that I can be in a meeting, and let's say you call, and I hit in a meeting, text me or something. And I hope that's not disrespectful to the person sitting across the table. But I do feel like it's a sign of the times we're in that
I need to edit my messages.
Folks are always, when someone calls you, you can hit message.
Yeah.
And you can actually go into your settings and create sort of default. I actually have a couple that are funny, like, hey, I'm busy practicing my nunchucks, working on my skills. Like, those are for buddies who know you're just joking around. Then there's a serious one like, hey, I'm in the middle of a meeting, but I may be able to sneak a text if it's time sensitive. You have a layer of casualty to those
I never
defaults.
edited mine. So mine's always, I'm on the phone. Can I call you back?
Yeah. Can I call you later?
But one thing I don't like is everyone that replies back. Yeah, sure. Call me whenever you can.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell that this is just a busy
for the two listeners out there,
text.
I definitely recommend, if you have an iPhone, going into settings and making some funny creative defaults, because now that I've gotten into the legislature, some of the folks that we work with have become more on the casual. And so I throw the nunchucks thing, and they just like, holy crap, did you text all that in the committee meeting? I'm like, no, that's a default. They're like, that's even better. Like, okay, I got a whole different level of respect for you, So
I'm
get
certainly
creative with those
get one.
default messages.
I'm gonna put one that says "Be Jeezy for Sheezy" is in the heezy. I'll call you whenever I get back.
That's right. Getting another
For
tattoo.
anytime I'm on the floor, I'm in the heezy.
Get another tattoo. I'll be with you in 2 hours.
Yeah, this tramp stamp's taking 3 hours. I'll call back soon.
That's right. Well, it is fall and it is football season, so we've added sort of a football segment to Pints and Politics. And I don't know about you. You probably have a rosier outlook looking into this weekend's
App State.
game.
We're just praying it's not Citadel, the kryptonite for South Carolina.
Yep. Or so yeah, y'all have App State at home. A lot of folks here who are Clemson fans are all going. It's going to be a night game. It's probably going to be a great atmosphere for college football. and looks like y'all are going to get the win.
I
Looking
am,
at the line, the line's 16.5 right now. Y'all are given.
I'm going to make a prediction, I guess you'd say. I would not be surprised to watch Clemson beat them like a drum just because of all of the negative press. Every one of those players that plays for Dabo, they're playing the number one team in the country.
Oh, yeah.
That is so huge. And, they hung in there till halftime. Yeah, they weren't moving the ball. Offense didn't look great.
Right.
But we also have to understand who they were playing.
Yeah, and an SEC team.
Spoken like a true Gamecock.
Zinger.
Never say USC, just say SEC.
31-30.
See, it's all the other teams in the ACC that say ACC.
Yeah, that's right.
Clemson just says Clemson.
Yeah, but
Clemson man needs not explain, right?
yeah, but I do think y'all are going to get the win. I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked at App State. I don't know if they're strong or not.
They truthfully do have a good team typically.
Maybe you'll have an Old Dominion experience where you win by a lot less than the spread of 16.5. But
I'm going to tell you that I don't think Beamer's getting enough beating on
how that team performed.
Not just the team performed, but the game plan. Like, I'm really hoping that USC was holding back their playbook and running more of an option offense. Because if that ends up being the offense,
I do not.
I don't see Beamer making it out of this year.
Yeah,
I couldn't.
I don't know if that's the case. That's optimistic, and I appreciate you extending some grace.
It's got to be. It's got to be
to
with that
my
talent.
South Carolina Gamecocks. But I think it was a first game. Our offensive line did not do a good job, and that has been. We had Spencer Rattler running for 2 years.
I could have put
life.
in Ian Grissom or Finley Polk and thrown for more yardage than what we did this past week. Or not, I say we, than South Carolina did this past week.
But we had a couple key drops, and it looked awful. I mean, we had a bomb early that should have been for a touchdown. Receiver dropped it.
I think Deshaun Watson rushed for more yards than that whenever he had like a torn ACL. So
stop. Okay, now you're just being insulting.
It's just payback time. I've been having to listen to Paul Feinbaum or whatever his name is all week long.
The meme of the week was Joel Osteen, and the tweet said Dabo Swinney without Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence. And Dabo, if you listen, we're just kidding. But that was a great meme.
Speaking of, I think everyone understands why Clemson felt. No, the meme of the week was actually the biggest fall off.
What was it? The biggest fall off of college football since Clemson in the DJ era, or Florida State in the DJ era was Clemson in the DJ era.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, there might be some commonalities.
Common thread. But yeah, so y'all look to walk away 1-1 after this weekend. USC has a little more difficult ball game going to Lexington, Kentucky to play the Wildcats.
I think Kentucky's got a good team.
Yeah, this is not the Kentucky of a decade ago. Coach Stoops, brother of who is Coach Stoops out in Oklahoma, who's retired now.
You can say that, but at the same time, every time we say this isn't the same Duke, everyone wants to go crazy. But I mean, Kentucky is the Duke of the SEC.
Yeah, you don't think Vanderbilt is? Decent basketball school. And,
yeah, maybe.
And really smart brainiacs.
So who would be the equivalent of Kentucky? Georgia Tech?
Maybe NC State.
Where they have a good team every once in a while and then they're bad. Well, that would be North Carolina. They do really bad, and then all of a sudden it's like they're contending for ACC championship.
Yeah, I'd say Kentucky's probably along a conference level, just below your top tier. Who was the top tier in the ACC? Clemson, FSU? Miami, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, those are...
I would say Kentucky's probably in the mix of...
Clemson would be more like the Bama. That's fallen off. Georgia coming up, that would be more like FSU.
Yeah, so I would say Kentucky's probably along the lines
Miami.
of an NC
Georgia
State,
Miami.
Tech, something like that.
Yeah, Virginia Tech. I mean, I remember whenever Miami and Virginia Tech came to the ACC, I was like,
It's over.
Keep running your mouth about how bad of a conference we are. And truthfully, if you look at the records, year in, year out, ACC versus SEC, ACC typically ends up on top over SEC teams. But I do agree that the SEC takes a beating because y'all have the hog mollies on the line, offense and defense, and it's always those big guys pushing everything, and the ACC is usually a little bit faster.
Well, and what it is a lot of times is those marquee matchups for championships.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think that's skewed though.
But no, I'm saying that's what people remember. People do not remember who played for the Orange Bowl championship between the 5 and 7 team. They remember 1 and 2 or 1 versus 3 in BCS days. You see what I'm saying? So when Bama beats Clemson or when Clemson beats Bama, that defines the conference.
I mean, Clemson loses to the number 1 team in the country and drops 20 spots.
Yeah. You know? Well, they look bad doing it.
Well, okay. But
I think that's the...
Okay. So, but you will have a 6-3 Tennessee being ranked in the top 10 over a team that's undefeated, still trying to get in. Like, that's what I mean now. It's unfair sometimes.
Well, I mean, it depends who the undefeated team is, right? If it's Clemson, no.
Alabama loses to a nobody, and everyone's like, that was just a fluke. Clemson loses to a nobody, it's like, knock them back 30 spots.
But when is the last time Alabama lost to a nobody or Clemson lost to a nobody?
I mean, when did South Carolina beat Bama?
South Carolina?
Yeah. Was it a
Stephen
few years
Garcia?
ago? No, I just saw it was a few years ago.
We beat with Garcia back in the day, Alshon and that.
Well, that was the last time y'all had like a winning season, wasn't it?
Stop. You know,
hey, I like Stephen Garcia.
I can't.
He was the Johnny Manziel of South Carolina.
Prior to, I know. Hey, and you know, him and DeMarco have a podcast now.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know who DeMarco is.
Oh, you don't. Come on, man.
Who?
No. He was a running back, fullback.
Okay.
During that era.
Yeah.
So
I always liked the cockiness of Stephen Garcia.
Yeah.
But my favorite, I have 2 favorite.
He was just
Gamecock
relatable.
players.
You know what I mean? Like, it depends on what were to happen. I remember early on when
he would have been me in college if I was good looking and athletic.
You know, he was probably drinking too many Miller Lights for your case, Bud Lights, and he would, just do something stupid and get in trouble for it because everyone knew who he was, what he looked like, and you were like, God, man, what a boneheaded thing. Yeah, I would have done that. I'm just an anonymous face, so I didn't get pointed out.
But you also got to think that's the same era that like Greg Olson was doing the rap videos and all. I mean,
but the rap
country
video
was
didn't
different.
come out.
Oh, I know. But Stephen Garcia, everything was out.
Yes.
But I'm just saying that was the culture at that time. That was that pendulum
key
swinging.
in a professor's car.
Yeah.
Getting drunk and getting arrested. Yeah. Absolutely.
That was the pinnacle of toxic masculinity, I guess you would say, in athletics.
But it wasn't defined then.
No. It was just, hey, he's just,
that's
just party.
That's a college experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, we faced Kentucky. It looks like the spread, they're giving us 8.5.
Who's your favorite Gamecock of all time?
All time? Man, I don't know. I loved Lattimore. He was like, bring your lunch pail, and he was good. He didn't brag. He didn't overstate. He
was great. I hated that injury.
I know, man. Both to Tennessee. Yeah, I know. He just seemed like a very humble guy, and he was talented, man. And he just...
I mean, he was Hunter Renfrow-esque.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, I remember when he came, I said, because Clowney was on the other side of the ball, I was like, man, we've got it.
Yeah.
And just the injuries got us. But I would say while I was going to school, Deuce Staley.
Yeah.
Back then, I was
Deuce
a freshman, English 101, and Deuce Staley's in my class.
Yeah.
He had just transferred from JUCO, and I didn't know who he was. Ended up being a very down-to-earth guy. He didn't have airs to him. He, obviously everyone knows he was a talented star coming out of Airport High School, local there to Columbia. And, man, he just was tough as nails. And he would lay it to Georgia. For some reason, when Deuce played, I don't know if it's because we got Georgia. Back then, we played Georgia second week, usually every year. And so he wasn't nicked up. He didn't have injuries, and he always used to just thrive in that game.
I mean, he had
And
a
we
great
used to
pro
compete.
career too.
Yeah, with the Eagles. And hell, he was a coach. I know he left Detroit and came down to the Panthers, but then I think his grandma got sick. And so he took a leave of absence. So I don't think he's with the new Panther staff now. I could be wrong, but
Probably doesn't want to be.
yeah. But I'd say Deuce or then Lattimore.
What about your favorite Clemson player? Is there one?
No, see, so my sister went to Clemson. I think her freshman year was 82, just after the first national championship in 81. So she was like, it was all downhill from there.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, we kind of got caught paying players. Thank you, Herschel Walker in Georgia, for exposing everything. I was waiting for that to happen this time. Last time Clemson and Georgia were top teams, we were paying players.
yeah. So
I mean, that's really what was going on, right?
I think Clemson back then, who was
Danny Ford.
Who was the QB back then? Rodney Williams, was it? Or
Yeah, I think did he go to the Redskins?
this is way back in the day, but
I don't know, man. I was born the year that Clemson won the national championship.
yeah, okay. So once I started growing up, though, and getting like my own thoughts, and I could read the data and see, this type of person goes to Clemson, this type of person goes to Carolina, I was like, I got to be a Gamecock fan, Hey, the Clemson fans wear the straight bills. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hey, it used to be the overalls.
We got the bend and the fish hook.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty accurate. Oh no, there's some fish hook. I mean, y'all do have the bass pro fishing team that's so great. But Clemson has kind of progressed to be more of that preppy golf, that fraternity life. I mean, whenever I think of like Clemson students, it seems more of that preppiness
Pinkies
now.
out.
Well, once they started winning national championships and started getting, it became a hard school to get into.
And your fan base has
changed.
gotten pretty, I don't
Uppity.
know. I guess once you reach that where you're winning a national, I mean, they won 2 national championships in 3 years.
In the trailer park growing up, I was the only Clemson fan. So,
I mean, right? Y'all won 2015 and 2017.
yeah.
I mean, man, that you start getting
Or
accustomed.
was it 17 and 19?
Was it 17, 19?
I
don't
can't
know.
remember.
But 2 out of 3 years, that starts getting your expectations up to where, I've never had that as a Gamecock fan. I've never experienced that, so I can't imagine the roller coaster you guys are on, but it's going downhill. You know what I mean?
I mean, as long as we're above USC, I mean, we just have to remember.
Let's bring Tommy Bowden back. 8-3, baby. 8-3.
3rd and 9, quarterback draw. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't excited whenever we hired Dabo because
Right.
it was okay. What does this guy know?
He was a coordinator, like this young
and
guy.
I think
Yeah.
Dabo is a great
Human
motivator
being.
and a
I
great
think he's-
human
yeah,
being.
great human being.
And I don't.
He
I
is
can't speak
someone
on
that
it because
you would
I
want-
can't do a better job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think him and Beam are very similar in the sense of those are 2 guys,
That the guys will follow him into war.
and you would want your son playing for him.
Yeah.
You'd be okay with, hey, that's fine, go 8-4, but teach him how to be a better man.
Man, I'm so glad whenever y'all went after that horrible Florida coach, y'all did not get Kirby Smart.
Oh, right? Who are you talking about, Muschamp?
Yeah.
Oh, he's on Georgia staff that just whooped the
Yeah, but
Panther.
he's better as a assistant.
coordinator. Yeah, right.
Not
Yeah, for
as
sure.
the head coach.
For sure. So
My favorite.
yeah.
Do we have time? Or
Yeah,
I didn't
absolutely.
know how close we are. My favorite Gamecock of all time has got to be Connor Shaw.
Oh, yeah.
And even
just
though
saw him last
I mean, we
weekend.
never beat him.
Yeah.
But he always, and like growing up, it was probably Tannehill, right? Because he just had that cockiness.
Yeah.
And you're looking for, those were the athletes that stood out, the Bosworth and Tannehill, and it was those guys that were the characters bigger than the game.
That's so funny how we're picking favorite players
Of the opposite team.
No. And we're picking players like you like. Connor Shaw is a little different than Steve Tannehill.
Yeah.
Steve Tannehill turned me off. Like, remember back then he had the mullet?
Oh, I
So
know.
he
I
the
had
hair.
the same mullet.
He was very brash, very celebratory,
Yeah.
that turns me off.
That was me at the skating rink.
And That's right. With the black roller skates.
Nothing feels better than having a perm mullet that's fresh, the line shaved in your head.
For the two listeners.
Going around the skating rink.
Hey, when you see
you
Guffey
can't beat
at
that flow.
Hot Wheels, the local roller rink, he's bringing the black custom roller skates.
I'm the guy dancing out there with neon pink and green wheels.
In the Big Lebowski, he's bringing the bowling ball from the house.
I ain't putting on them stinky feet. Reynolds, what you talking about?
That's awesome.
And I'm not part of this whole new, I don't know my gender, wear rollerblades crowd. I stick it to old school. But no, I loved Connor Shaw.
Yeah.
I mean, I hated him, but I had so much respect for him.
Yeah, correct.
Because I always felt like he didn't have the most talent. But man,
correct.
I would take a guy like that with that much heart
Any
day.
I know.
On my team. And my favorite Clemson player of all time, for the exact same reason, is Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah. Okay.
To have that much heart, he might not run the 40 or jump as high and all this, but man, he was somebody you could count on that was going to sacrifice everything to make a play.
Right. It's not so much measured on paper.
Yeah.
Right. But between the lines,
he's a leader.
He's the guy catching the touchdown pass.
Yeah.
He's the guy that Watson had trust in to throw the pick play and get that touchdown.
Yeah.
To win the title.
That they both led by being led. They didn't try to step up and be that leader. The teammates made them the leader because they earned that trust.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's true. So this weekend, marquee games, Texas is going up to Michigan. Noon kickoff. I'm going to take the Longhorns in that one. Got any? No. Hey, another big game in the ACC. Ramblin' Wreck is going to Syracuse. Going to fight over the who sits atop the ACC.
It's been 1 week. Come on now.
Well, I mean, Florida State played on week 0 and got their ass whooped. So.
Yeah, well.
Bro,
Florida
0-2.
State, yeah.
Hey, wait a minute. Who'd they lose to in the first week? Florida
Georgia
State.
Tech.
Okay, in Ireland. So they're already 0-2 in the conference because they lost to BC last week.
Yeah.
What are they going to do in week 3?
Now, what are we going to be doing
Hoping for
whenever
a bye,
BC's
maybe?
like 8-0?
Yeah, actually good. Yeah, that'd be wild. I don't
I
know,
mean, you
man.
never. I honestly think that it is hard to predict, other than the powerhouses,
Yeah.
because of recruiting and the NIL deals and the transfer portal. You don't know. One star can make such a difference.
Right.
And I think there's not a better example than DJ on how much a difference a quarterback can make.
Oh, 100%. I totally
You can
agree.
have the best arm talent in the world, but if you're constantly scared, I mean, look at, David Carr, Derek Carr's older brother. Whenever he's at the Texans, one of the best quarterbacks, but all it took was him getting rocked for a year or two, and then he got gun shy, and everything was a check down.
Well, it became a confidence game at that
Yeah.
point because you can't throw from your back. I don't care how good your arm strength is and everything
It's like
else.
me on the golf course. Like,
On your back?
no, I mean, whenever I make a good shot, and then it's like once I make the bad shot, I'm like, the entire time you're trying to correct the shot.
Right.
Instead of having the confidence, and it's that loss of confidence.
That's what I tell
that
my
starts
daughter.
sinking you.
That's what I tell my daughter. She plays varsity tennis for Rock Hill, and I'm like, she'll hit one bad thing, and then it looks like she gets into the dirt for the next 2 or 3 points. I said, listen, you got to win this point. That's got to be your mantra. You got to be able to wipe it away. If you hit a bad shot, forget it. And that's hard. That is the hardest thing about sports is being able to push that bad one out and then start anew. So
I do the same thing on that little basketball game where you got to keep shooting the ball. You miss one, you're missing 5.
yeah.
All right, so what else you got going on?
Hey, Michael Johnson.
You're live on the air, Michael.
You're live on the podcast. We miss you, buddy.
We see which swamp creatures swim together.
He goes, your ratings are plummeting as we speak. See you here in a little bit?
I left it recording. What you talking about?
So while we're segueing from football to the legislature, I was contacted a few weeks ago, and I want to talk about this while we're sort of in football season. A reporter asked me about, I think we had a gambling bill come up, maybe online gambling last year.
That and horse races.
Yeah, and I didn't get too much into that.
Yeah.
Only because I had heard it was going to get locked up in the Senate for a host of reasons. And so I didn't really do a lot of due diligence on it. But I wanted to just throw it out there and get your perspective on online gambling and this, that, and the other. I don't do a lot. I'm not a big fan of gambling. Like, I can go to Vegas for a construction conference or whatever, and I might gamble $40, and that on a $5 ante blackjack table.
Right.
And that can probably last me a few hours, and I can get up $60-$80. I'll cash out the chips, and I'll be in Vegas for maybe 3 days. And that $40 I can make run the whole time I'm there.
Yeah.
And that's it. But I'm just not a big gambler.
Like, the only gambling really that I'd say I ever do, I don't even view it as gambling, is pay to be part of a fantasy football league.
Right.
And it all goes into a pot, and at the end of the year, the winner gets the pot.
Yeah, right.
You know?
I do that every year.
And I view that more as skill, not luck,
Yeah,
which gambling should be skill considered.
Or also
skill.
entertainment value.
Yeah.
You're paying for an entertainment.
Like,
right?
I still don't understand the whole pinball thing, but we'll bypass that. But what I don't like is government having a monopoly. If we're going to allow the lottery, which I still, I don't agree with the way our lottery funds are spent right now.
So what about, so you don't support a government-run lottery? You support...
No, what I'm saying is, if we're going to
gambling?
allow, if we're going to
FanDuel,
I don't care what,
DraftKings,
gambling's gambling. It don't matter.
But you're okay with private online gambling.
I'm okay with any gambling if the state's going to have a lottery. Like, I don't believe that it's the government's right to say we can gamble, you can't.
Yes, correct.
You know?
Yep.
If you're going to ban gambling altogether, well, the state shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my view.
So currently, you do not like our education lottery system and how it's set up.
No, I mean, I think with the amount of money that we make off of the lottery, we should not even be having to pay for K through 12 education.
Yeah.
And we sit here and talk about secondary education. Well, not everyone's required to go to secondary education, but everyone's required to go to K-12.
Yes.
Why are we asking the federal government for funds? Why isn't the lottery just paying for that? And why don't we have the best education system in the state or in the country?
Right. Well, and I remember it, I don't know if you were old enough. Were you old enough when all that debate was going on in the 90s, early 90s?
I mean, I remember it, but I don't.
Yeah.
What was that? Was it Jim Hodges governor?
Yeah, it was right around that Beasley
he
Hodges
ran on
era.
two things. One was stopping the lottery
everyone
and not
knows,
removing the Confederate flag.
Everyone knows in the state
both of them
the Confederate flag and online and video poker got Beasley.
And video poker was widely detrimental. Whenever I was growing up, I always say my mom worked 3 jobs and I'd go to work with her places, but one of the places that she worked at was a gas station in downtown Rock Hill.
Yeah.
That was like a pool hall, and they had video poker and stuff in the back.
Mm-hmm.
And I would sit there and, shoot pool most of the time, but you'd constantly see the people coming in. And the problem became whenever people were wasting their entire paycheck on a poker machine.
Yeah, that's sad.
And
so online gambling, if online gambling comes up in a bill, whether it originates in the House or the Senate, do you have a problem, a moral dilemma with online gambling?
No, I think my constituents would.
Yeah, I think some of mine would too.
I think my constituents, and I can tell you, my church would have a major problem with it.
Yeah.
Because they view it as us just funding gambling. But as I said, I don't believe in the state saying it's good for us and we just eliminated all competition. And online gambling, let's be honest, if you and me wanted to gamble right now online, we can. Some other states just getting the funds for it.
Yes.
We can. There's nothing stopping us. We can sit here and say it's illegal, but it's not like we got a gambling task force going around and checking people's phone to see if you're online gambling. I mean, I don't know where this come from, but I get these Bet on USA books mailed to my house, and I've never put money into something like that.
Yeah, no, I've never seen that, but yeah, I mean, one of the benefits of being a border county to North Carolina is, here in the state, if you want to try to do FanDuel, it's blocked or whatever, but we can go up to Charlotte and make a bet.
You just go to private browser on your phone, and it changes the VPN. You can do whatever you want to.
Well, yeah, you can. I'm just saying if you got the app, which I do. But so anyway, that question was asked, like, would I support it or this, that, and the other? And I said, me personally, if you're asking me personally, I don't have a problem with online gambling. Like just what you said, FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever. If the government's going to run a lottery, let's make an even playing field and let online gambling occur.
and I would make that argument with my constituents. Many of them would probably disagree, saying that I'm opening the floodgates.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that we are in the video poker era.
No.
And if it's just talking about now, if we were, I said any gambling, but if we were talking about opening up video poker again
Right.
across the states after we've already seen the detrimental effect, then I would have a problem with it. But, if the Catawba Indian Nation wanted to open a casino, I was one of the few ones like, hey, instead of it being in Kings Mountain, why isn't it sitting on our reservation here? And why aren't we benefiting our area more than it's sitting up there in North Carolina?
Well, and so,
I mean, it would have looked very good right across from that York County park that they just put up down there.
yeah. Well,
Just to mess with Christy Cox. Sorry.
And so, I guess that's some of the questions that that I would have is if you allow online gambling in the state of South Carolina, what are the projected tax revenues? Now, for some folks, it wouldn't matter, right? The folks who would stand on the moral issue of gambling is wrong, right?
It better be higher than what cigarettes are. Because cigarettes are getting ridiculous on price, so they better be adding on that sin tax that they do with cigarettes.
Yeah. Well, and they're talking about. I was reading an article because of this sports reporter calling me and asking about it. It looked like there was a lot of tax revenue that North Carolina is making since they've legalized online gambling, to the tune of millions and millions and millions of dollars, and they use that tax revenue to fund a lot of different things. A lot of things go to smaller, non-Power 5 schools to help their athletic departments, things of that nature, to offset state investment, right? So they lower their state spend.
That's the way it should be.
In higher education. But I think another good idea would be to what you were speaking to. If we're going to get, let's just say, we legalize online gambling here in South Carolina and it produces $25-30 million of tax revenue, and I'm just throwing out a number. What if we directed that to K through 12 education?
Right.
Like what?
Or first steps. Or, I mean, we're constantly talking about how expensive daycare is.
Right.
These are things that government doesn't have to fund, so we're using something that, we're losing the tax rate. I mean, same thing with marijuana. I mean, on these things that are legal in other states that people can just go to at any time.
Yeah.
If we're collecting the tax revenue and can get rid of our state tax.
Yeah, K-4 programs early. Yeah, because
Even if we didn't apply it to that, just lower our tax burden.
Right.
Instead of taxing businesses 10% and taxing residents 4%, or, let's lower those. Let's get rid of personal income tax.
Don't get me started. I know. We've been having a lot of, you and I offline have had conversations, had a couple of just other delegation members here in York County talking about what can we do to lower taxes here in the state of South Carolina. I think accelerating a personal income tax cut would be a good idea for next year.
Right.
I think what is it now? It's around 6.2.
Well, and everyone's talking about that money that was found. Supposedly.
Oh, that billion,
Yeah, so I was at a chamber meeting yesterday as they're traveling around the state and talking to business owners, and they're sharing information. But, it was brought up during that money is still don't know where it came from, if it really exists, so to say, and everyone's just like, oh, well, give it to this and put it to this. And I think the number one, because they were doing them polls thing like we did at York Tech, where you select answers. And the number one answer was to put it to education by all the business leaders, right? Well, to me, I would rather give it back instead of putting it towards something. Like, obviously, we didn't need it, so why are we collecting it to begin with? Let's give it back.
Or if that's a hard sell in state government, maybe we use it as a budget filler for the next however
tax
long.
break.
Yep, for tax breaks. That's right.
Some of the stats that they shared, and, one of the ones, I'm trying to pull this up.
Well, while you're doing that, to that point, it's, right now in this Biden-Harris administration over the last 3.5 years, statistically, go out and check it, but groceries have gone up, risen 26%. Gas has almost doubled. And all of these things are a tax. They're not calling it an official tax, but it's a tax. And it's harder for folks who are in the lower income or even medium income streams to make ends meet anymore.
It's harder for me and my peeps.
You know, I mean, seriously. And a lot of the folks that we represent, it's harder to make groceries last the week.
Right.
It's harder to make that 1 or 2 tanks of gas.
I mean, unemployment's still $300 and something dollars.
You know, and yeah.
What are you buying for $300 now?
And so I think trying to find ways that we can ease that pain, even if it's temporary, with that budget surplus of 1.8 or the hidden money or the found money, is probably something we need to consider.
I wouldn't disagree with that, but whenever you're talking about, let's everyone just look at your mortgage. So if we lowered property tax, you know, is that going to make a big difference weekly? Even if we got rid of state income tax for me and my people, that might be $20 on the state side coming out of your check on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think whenever I was, running payroll, like someone that makes $50,000 a year is around $20 a week coming out of their paycheck on the state side. Most of it's federal and everything else. But is that's not enough to offset to begin with.
No, and I don't think government's going to be the total solution.
But the amount that if we just simply quit with so many of the programs that we have, and I'm not talking about mental health, you know, and our needed areas, and I'm not talking about eliminating that, but I feel like we give so much money, and even as a person that owns a nonprofit, I feel like it's not the government's job to take everyone's money and then decide which nonprofit should benefit from it.
Right.
If we just gave the money back to the people, and the way that things used to work is people would give their money to the church, and the church kind of took care of the community around them.
Right.
I think we would be a whole lot better, and we'd have a lot more people with Christian values as well.
Well, let me just interject. Take a look at church membership over the last 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where that gap is being lost as well, is that what you just said. I mean, I tithe 10%, right? It's automatic. Direct deposit goes right. So,
I mean, whenever you got people like the Morning Star pastor, messing with kids, who wants to send their kids to a place like that?
yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know.
But one of those stats, we were talking about taxes during that meeting. In 2022, the General Assembly passed the largest tax cut in state history, going from 7% down to 6.5%, with a phased-in reduction of 6% over the next 5 years. $96 million allocated in 2023 to drop from 6.5% to 6.4%. $200 million allocated in 2024 to go from 6.4 down to 6.2.
Yep.
Like, these are all part of the budget.
So on and so forth.
So the people that voted against the budget voted against these tax cuts too. But whenever we look at income tax rates by state,
oh yeah,
if we're just looking at the Southeast, North Carolina's 4.75.
Right. And we're at 6.2.
Right. And they've got lower business taxes.
What's their business tax?
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons we have to offer the FILOs.
Oh, I know.
So in order to compete, that's the reason we have to have economic development.
Me and Senator Clymer were just talking about this
in North Carolina, and everybody's like, well, if we lower the business tax, we got to raise personal tax. Well, our personal taxes are higher already.
I think we have got to get in line.
And I guarantee you we give more to universities than other states.
Yeah, well...
I would definitely be interested to see.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and I love our universities.
Absolutely.
But I feel like we subsidize them too much. You should be producing return on investment.
Where they get hooked on that smack and then they start...
Well, I mean, if you're producing successful people and they're turning around and they're giving back to your university, you've got donors.
Yeah,
but whenever you're
also
teaching, gay art history as a subject and no one can make any money off of it, you got a problem.
Clemson, you got to stop.
Yeah.
You just got to stop. But hey, I think I just saw our own Congressman Ralph Norman just tweeted out this week that USC just got a massive haul in research grants and funding. Did you see that?
And that's all from the federal government.
I think so. Well, you got to think, maybe it's NOAA, maybe it's, you know what I mean, sort of folks dealing in brain science or whatever, the health sciences, those types of things. It could be.
I mean, I personally think that's where most of the corruption is in all these grants.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because we're taking everyone's money and then saying we're only going to allow these people to decide what's best to spend it on.
Yeah, I don't know. And you and I talked about this before.
And I have to apply for grants, so I'm not.
I don't throw the word corrupt around because that's a serious charge.
I'm saying corruption as a whole. Whenever we're talking about money, other than foreign aid, I think foreign aid is where a lot of the money really goes missing. I mean, let's talk Burisma, but
so yeah, I think there's opportunities to compete with other states in the Southeast region. I think looking at, you said the personal income tax in North Carolina is 4.75.
Yeah,
and ours is 6.
And Georgia's low. Every state in the Southeast is lower
and ours
than
is
what
6.2. I think figuring out
we
a
also
way,
have the highest automobile insurance.
I think figuring out a way to get, even if it's a stair-step approach, because everything in Columbia is gradual, right? You can't just, but if there's some way that we can get our personal income tax from 6.2 to 3.5, you know what I mean, over the next 7 years. And again, I applaud the 124th session, so the session before us, that made it a priority.
That tax cut.
And got that budget, and they did it. I think that was Jay Lucas's and Gary Semeral's last, right? And so they probably wanted to help build a legacy of, and applaud to them, you know? I mean, they said, hey, we're not going to do it in one term, but let's set it in our budget that the vision is over the next 4 to 5 years with economic benchmarks to be made, right? So if we hit a recession, that personal income gets interrupted or paused until we come out, and then it keeps stair-stepping down again. So, kudos to them. But I think something like that would be well received in the Republican caucus.
Yeah.
Next go around. I definitely think that we need to look at progressive ways to get our personal income tax down, and also business taxes.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that all of our higher education is, wasted money. I'm not saying that, because just as we were sitting in that AI lab, we see how valuable it can be.
Yeah.
It's what makes people question it's whenever you have the degrees that are not producing the return on the investment.
Yeah, right.
Or whenever we were in school, you could go to school for, $15,000 a year.
Yeah, right.
To a university.
Well, and
you can't even go to York Tech for that right now, can you?
So I think, we've got some great college presidents, here locally with Dr. Cern over at Winthrop and Stacy Moore over at York Tech. I think they get it, and I can't speak for all of our technical or small or medium schools, but they understand the workforce development side of what colleges.
I mean, I think York Tech is the perfect example of workforce development.
Yep. And I do think our institutions of higher learning, like, sort of the Power Five, the USCs, the Clemsons, and I know College Charleston isn't a Power Five school, but it's a larger university here in the state. I think they're starting to get it. I think they're starting to understand that, hey, listen, it's great to teach arts management, but what tools are you giving that student to enter the workforce?
Well, I mean, tenure plays a big part in it.
Yeah.
Why are we paying people that much money as a retirement whenever just because you've been there that long, or you can't be fired?
Yeah, or tenure after 2 years.
Yeah. And I'm not the most educated on that. I'm going off of what I hear as complaints.
Yeah.
And not me sitting there studying it. So for anybody that says, oh, well, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Trust me, I'm arguing with people constantly whenever they're spewing nonsense. So I'm happy to discuss it with people. But bottom line, as a citizen, as a father who is sending a son to college right now, that falls in that low income bracket, I don't feel like do I feel like the lottery's doing anything to help my son get an education? No.
Well,
because you still can't afford it. You have to sit there and apply for grants, apply for scholarship.
Oh, yeah.
Like you got to apply for so many just to get to a break-even point.
And
for somebody, I mean, my parents didn't even graduate high school.
Yeah.
I didn't graduate college, so how am I supposed to navigate my children through going through this process?
Hey, man, I'm a child. I'm the baby of 5 kids, single mom, and I had to fill out all of those federal student aid, all the grant applications, and what a maze that was for an 18-year-old kid with the help of his parent. And every year, the federal financial aid would always come like a few days late. So I would have a fall schedule, picked all my classes, did all the research, and I was like, yeah, this is exactly the way I want it. First day of class, I show up as my printed schedule, and nope, you're not on my roster, the professor's telling me. And they're like, oh, it looks like your financial aid didn't come through.
Yeah.
So they just drop all of your classes because the money didn't come in. And I got to wait a few days till that actual check would come in. I'd have to run over to the registrar and the financial aid, get my tuition and everything paid, and then re-enroll back in the classes. And guess what? All that was left was the garbage 8 a.m.s.
And this is whenever they're charging you $400 for a textbook that they decided to change every 2 years.
Yeah, and there was no forgiveness, right?
Yeah.
Like you had to go and maybe talk to the professor to get an override back in those days. And so, and again, that's a whole nother probably segment of a podcast for a later episode. But when you have low income students and the hurdles that they have to jump over to get an education, folks have got to start understanding what that is. You know what I mean?
The only option I had was military.
It was rough.
Or work and pay for classes, which is what I did.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're talking about financial aid. I'm trying to wait on my paycheck to come in so I can pay for the next semester.
I tell you.
I mean, but my parents were willing to help, but I also understood our economic situation. I mean, whenever this happened, my stepdad worked at General Tire. They were going through a strike.
Right.
So, I mean, he's doing construction for pennies on the dollar, working for somebody else, just trying to make things work. So I understood how everything was. And it's like, I didn't want that unfair, because I knew my mom is the type of mom that would do anything. I mean, I think your mom, most of our moms are that way.
I'll be honest, I don't know how my mom did it.
Yeah.
I have no idea how she made... I mean, and again,
but you were able to apply for financial aid. I couldn't.
Yeah,
because they wanted my biological father's information on a form, and he wouldn't provide that.
Oh man, yeah. So I had, my mom was working at Belk for 20-something years, and then she took a half retirement or something, and instead of moving because they were restructuring, and then she went over to College Charleston and worked there for another 20 years. So, I don't know how she did it. I mean, I think her paychecks back then, I mean, she was making 32, 35 a year. And this is late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
But but what I'm saying is, I don't know.
Amount of kids and everything.
I have no clue. But she told me ever since I was able to listen, which was probably about when I was 20. But she told me, you're going to college. Your education is the ladder. That's the only way you're getting out. You're going to, that's why she insisted on straight A's. My mom, if I brought home a B on an interim, you're restricted until your report card. And I'm like, what? But man, my mom was, son, she ain't no joke.
I always thought that I could work to get an athletic scholarship at some point. Because I was, the younger grades and the rec league and everything, I was really good. And it was like, okay, if I can
hear stories.
If I can,
Perry Sutton tells me,
if I could just work harder, like I always wanted to be a running back, but as soon as you got to Northwestern, you had D Feaster, and I'm like, there ain't no way that I'm gonna be a running back ahead of D Feaster. But Derek Ross was the quarterback, so it's like, okay, let me try a wide receiver. But I ended up getting into, it wasn't just a bike wreck, but I ended up getting into a bike wreck where I couldn't play football anymore, and it was like, I didn't know what I was gonna do.
You got into a bike wreck?
I ripped half my face off on a mountain bike. You hadn't heard this before?
This is
where my chin comes from. I got a massive scar here.
That's right. This is strikingly similar to the scooter story I heard when you and Michael Johnson went to Kentucky.
No, the
you just
bike
need
wreck
to stay off bipeds, man. It's got to have more than two wheels, Guffey.
The bike wreck required like facial reconstruction and everything.
My Lord.
So it was pretty bad. That was multiple years of surgeries.
Well, I know we got a segue here and wrap stuff up, but yeah, that's we should maybe figure out a way to get Ellen Weaver on here or somebody with higher ed. I know she's K through 12 or she's Department of Education, but that's just interesting. Just us talking about. I mean, that just reminded me of getting
anytime somebody's like, let's give money
Pell Grants
to colleges, and I look at the budget and I'm just like, good Lord, like why does it cost $120 million to build a building?
Well, and again, I don't know why it costs that much. I mean, when I went to Carolina, it wasn't that much, but I will say the job of our institutions of higher learning isn't just educating and preparing young people for, say, work, right? They're also research institutions, right? There's a lot of funding that goes into whether it's Clemson, and I'm not making a farm joke here, but whether it's Clemson and
For agriculture,
you see Clemson
engineering
all over the state.
Yeah.
Yep. But there's a lot of science, there's a lot of engineering that goes into how we farm, how can we be more efficient, how can we get higher yields, all those types of things. That's what some of that research has come out of those institutions. So while we think of the traditional undergraduate degree as just educating young people, there's a lot of other things that goes into it.
It just seems the more money that we have given to colleges and universities,
The more dependent they get.
the more dependent that they get,
Yep.
and the more tuition rises, and the less the return on investment is being. It's no different than our welfare or anything else.
Right.
The more that you start giving people, the
Well,
less output that you're going to get.
I think the conservative ideal of the more government gets involved,
yeah.
the more inefficient.
But I mean, I understand state schools need to have some involvement.
Yeah.
But you would think with the lottery, not a single citizen within South Carolina should have to pay to go to college. Or there should be no reason that a kid within our state gets turned down because there's an out-of-state student that's paying more.
Yeah, an in-state student should be able to go to any state school for free.
Yeah, and if I take English at York Tech, I should be able to go to any college that receives state dollars.
It should transfer.
And it should transfer. There's no reason that it should cost $10,000 at Clemson and $500 at York Tech.
Right.
Just use, and I don't know if that's the numbers, but an example.
It's usually per credit hour, so it's always whatever, $500.
Yeah, but it's not the same price at
No,
everyone.
no, it's not. It might be $99 at York Tech, but it's $5.99 at Clemson. Yeah, for sure. So.
And if you want to be known as prestigious and charge that much more, well, guess what? You don't get the state funds. If you're charging that much money, then, I mean, I think about all these schools that have all this money set aside. Like they talk about Harvard, having all this money that was set aside.
Oh, right.
And it's like, why are they getting any funding? I mean, the people who have graduated are turning around and are being donors.
Those massive
and giving it
endowments.
back.
Yeah.
And I want that workforce development. I want us creating those jobs. I want the best architects in the world to live in South Carolina and do that for a living.
Yeah, correct. Well,
Right?
that's what sort of spurred, I think, or motivated me on the medical school stuff, was listening to medical students telling me 3 out of the 5 were leaving
To go work somewhere else.
And that's when I realized, wait a minute, there's no scholarships for medical school? No.
Well, it's because people aren't paying for their own medical bills.
And I'm like, holy smokes. Think about it. I got Pell Grants, Stafford loans, some scholarship money. And that's frustrating. That's another story. I was a year ahead of the Palmetto Life Scholarship, so I was ineligible. But why don't we offer some sort of scholarship for say,
The positions we want here.
That's correct.
We do it for teachers.
Let's identify the workforce that we want to recruit to South Carolina, and let's incentivize it.
Yeah.
Whether it's computer techs, light
But if we
manufacturing
incentivize
folks,
it, all
whether
that
it's-
is the government turning around and paying the university $200,000
To-
for someone to get educated to say that they're going to turn around and stay here.
Well, just to prepare them for the workforce that our employers need, right? So, and again, we can get
this
into
is
the
thinking
philosophy-
out loud.
Yeah,
No one
right.
think that this is policy that we're talking about.
Absolutely
Anytime we're discussing this stuff, it's always just,
half-baked.
well, half-baked obviously means something different to you than it does me.
Here we go. All right, so let's wrap this thing up. I know we got a busy Friday ahead of us, but
It's been good conversation.
It has.
Probably, I hope the listeners enjoy us just having a genuine conversation, and everything that we wanted to talk about, we didn't even get to other than college football.
No, have notes, program notes, this, that, and the other, and it's like, yeah, just
College football was supposed to be 15 minutes and then 5 other subjects, but no, we got 2 subjects.
yeah, no. So looking ahead for next week, I'm off actually to a renewable energy conference in California, so that's gonna be interesting.
California.
Yeah, well, for my day job. So
Oh, okay.
I'm going out there.
I was about to say, did the Democratic Party send those invites out?
Yeah, just learning more about battery storage, the technology, all those types of things. But then get back over here early Thursday, and we have that
Energy conference.
talking about smart energy and some of the alternative energies and those types of things. But the following week, hosting a couple folks. I'm still working on the panel, the lineup. I know Senator Johnson is going to sit on because I think he's going to speak to the tort reform bill that they were trying to work and get out of committee and get out of the Senate last year. Will Kinney, who basically is the resident expert attorney who was working on all the language for the tort reform bill.
I don't know why you're wasting time. The Freedom Caucus is on it now. I mean, it's only a year late, but they're on it. They're going to be able to handle it all.
We'll invite them to the next one.
I mean, you did hear Joe White's comments.
So, stop.
The only reason that we need it to begin with is because we've got lawyer legislators.
So what was the solution?
Get rid of the lawyer legislators.
So wait a minute. If we got rid of lawyer legislators as the answer to tort reform, wouldn't that be jeopardizing the livelihood of lawyers who happen to be in the House or the Senate?
He only cares about jeopardizing the livelihood of those that run his campaign within the House, not...
No, I remember...
I mean, I think that's like in the dictionary under hypocrite, isn't it?
I remember I had a personal conversation with our colleague at Newberry and about the amendment or about the bill that said you cannot run campaigns for House members or folks who wanted to be a House member if you were a sitting House member, right? That just reeks of conflicts of interest, possibly public corruption, all those things. And he said, how can you write a bill that takes away a person's livelihood? So if he had thought that out, that means that
I don't think there's too much getting thought out over there.
Lawyer legislation that he was saying is the solution to tort reform would be jeopardizing the livelihood or the opportunity for lawyers who happen to be in the House or the Senate to put food on the table for their families.
Yeah, I mean,
it's inconsistent.
I do not like that we have so many lawyer legislators, but that is their industry. Writing law, defending law.
Yeah, right.
But I don't like that because I think lawyers are risk adverse. They move very slow. I think business owners and entrepreneurs are very quick to change. And I think the perfect balance is catching in between, and we're lawyer legislator heavy.
We're comfortable with more
risk.
risk.
But it's not our decision.
No.
It's not government's job to say who can't be in office. The people select who they want to represent them.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that the majority of people in the state seem to choose attorneys that you might not agree with.
Yeah.
But you don't live in his district, so you don't have a say-so, so shut up.
Well,
let the people choose. That's how our system works.
But we do have a very robust ethics system here in the state of South Carolina, so that should address or appease anyone who wants to yell corruption at every turn.
Yeah.
And
we can always make improvement, but
absolutely.
Just by eliminating or demonizing an entire group, which, I mean, that's the Freedom Caucus way, so it doesn't surprise me. I don't know why he's not chair.
Man, you have totally hijacked.
Sorry.
I was literally just trying to talk about liquor liability forum that we're having at Hoppin, and we have gone into a ditch.
I am the best at talking about how great your grass looks and turning it into how dirty the Freedom Caucus is, because the dirt in the lawn reminded me of the dirtiness of the Freedom Caucus.
Yeah. Well, September 18th, I think we're going to start that conversation at 5:30. Like I said, Senator Johnson is going to come on the panel. Will Kinney.
You said the 18th?
Yeah, September the 18th. I believe it's a Wednesday.
Yep.
Over at Hoppin.
Yeah, I've got to speak at the chamber before that, and then I plan on coming out there.
Okay.
Lake Wiley Chamber.
And so what I've told everybody is plan for maybe a 20, 30-minute panel discussion. I'm trying to get someone from the Department of Insurance or the insurance industry who could speak from that side. Senator Michael Johnson is also an attorney, so he can speak from the legal profession as well as his senator ball cap. I can speak from the rep ball cap, and then Probably have someone in the business community, maybe even Joe Gullidge, who's the proprietor owner of
Better
Hoppin
seeing the
Rock
issues
Hill.
firsthand.
Yep. And so me being the landlord of that building, Joe and I have firsthand knowledge of the liquor liability issue. And we're going to tell that story. We're going to talk about opportunities of how maybe the state legislature could offer solutions for that.
And we've got the insurance professionals seem to want to demonize the attorneys want to demonize the insurance attorney. For the common man, for my peeps out there,
Yeah.
let's just look at it. Have you ever met anyone poor in insurance or as an attorney?
So
Everybody's in it to make money, but that doesn't mean that they're corrupt. They're looking out for, because I
Their
do agree
self-interest.
with the term or the saying that everyone wants tort reform until it's your family that's affected.
Yeah, right.
And it's just like life insurance. You never think that you would need $20 million. You're like, man, that's more money than I'd ever need. But if you take what you make in a year
Yeah.
and the amount of years it's taken off of your life, and it's like, okay, well, that would have been the livelihood.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and hopefully we can address, when we went to the polls this past, primary season? No. It was when the presidential primary came through, when it was Haley, Trump, and whoever else. But I think there was a question on the ballot about tort reform.
I just voted no to all those because they were too confusing. They
Well,
had that closed primary question trying to confuse people.
Yes. Well, you're one of the 13% because 87% of South Carolina primary voters indicated support for civil liability reform.
Yeah.
So, but the devil's in the details, right? What that looks like and how that
It's
affects
kind of like
our
that
businesses.
first question on closed primaries. There's no details there.
Right.
Don't sit here and tell me, 90% support closed primary. Nah, you didn't even make it clear what you were talking about.
Well, I said 87%.
Yeah.
But yeah, but looking forward also to next week while we're at the energy conference. When we get out of there on Friday during some of the sessions, we're running over to Holy City Brewing.
Another Comer distributing
Yeah.
location.
Yep. And we are going to sit at Holy City and do the remote broadcast from the brewery. We're going to have special guest Senator Sean Bennett. We're going to have Representative Gary Brewer, maybe some others, maybe Chris Murphy, Robbie Robbins may join us. And, Chris Murphy and Robbie Robbins, both lawyer legislators. It'd be interesting to get their take on the liquor liability while we're sitting in a brewery.
Right.
So, hey, colleagues down there in the Low Country, it's not a setup. You know what's coming.
If it takes us a little bit longer for new guests, we always say, hey, we'll edit it if you need us to.
But, yeah, looking forward to a lot of travel for me next week. But I'll see you next week down in Charleston at the Energy Conference. And looking forward to...
I thought I was riding with you, but...
giving the two listeners the remote broadcast from Holy City Brewing. Once again, thanks to Comer Distributing for providing the pint of the week.
And thank you to Session Studios. Once again, a wonderful
the
location.
Spacious, the palatial
the
15,000
temperature
square feet.
stays a very comfy 69 degrees.
Hey, and the producer, he enjoys the seat and the lighting better. Down
Yeah,
there.
he can kick back on the couch with his legs up.
Yep.
And his sweet tea.
That's right. All right, thank y'all. Y'all have a good week.
Anything you want or who you want to be, you can be. Just remember those who make this life so easy.